recording. There we go.
Cool.
All right. Can I get Trent to read the land acknowledgement statement?
I'd be happy to.
Great.
The BPAC Equity and Land Acknowledgement Statement approved November 2021. We, as the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, want to begin this meeting by affirming BPAC's commitment to equity and racial justice. We would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on lands that have served as the home for diverse indigenous communities long before current governments were established here. We pay our respect to the elders and members of these communities, both past and present, and recognize the harms of genocide and colonialism. We will make a conscious effort to reflect on the following questions as we advance through our business and contemplate changes in our community. And we recognize that achieving equity requires our commitment to an ongoing process. How can we seek to repair harm with our work and not erase history? How does our work impact the vulnerability and safety of people who hold many intersecting marginalized identities, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color, people with disabilities, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning LGBTQ+ people? How can we prioritize and center people in our decision making? How can we be more responsive to local needs? And how can our work build community power and shared decision making?
Great. Thank you. All right. Let me make all of the people bigger to me. Okay, great. And then we'll go through and do some introductions. So I'll start and then I'll just call people. I'm Mary Rose. I am the BPAC chair, and I am primarily on the Planning and Policy Committee. And first on my screen is Brian Hawkins.
Good evening, Brian Hawkins, at-large member for the city since 2022, and I serve on the Development Review Subcommittee.
Great. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Pendergrass. I work for Durham Public Schools as a Safe Routes to School planner.
Donna Lap.
Hi, I work for DPS also as a Safe Routes to School educator.
Ed Rizzuto.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ed Rizzuto. I was appointed to the commission in 2018 by the County Board of Commissioners. I participate with the Community Engagement Committee as well.
Great. Scott.
Yes, hi, this is Scott Carter, and I've been on for, I think, 3 years and am the chair of the Development Review Committee.
Hannah Bartlebaugh.
Bartlebaugh, Youth Advocacy appointee from the county and Community Engagement Chair.
Maggie.
Maggie Green, on since November. I am focused on the trails and I'm on the Community Engagement Committee.
Chris.
I'm Chris Perlstein. I think I've been on for roughly a year. I am the secretary, though I'm not doing a good job with that. And I'm also on planning and policy.
Tony.
Thank you. I'm Tony Reevy. I joined the committee or the council last summer. I'm an at-large member from the county, and I serve on the Planning and Policy Committee. Thank you.
Rosie.
I'm Rosie Edmonds. I'm the youth representative, and I am partake in the community engagement.
John.
John Lawler. I'm the seniority rep for the county. I've been a part of BPAP since September of last year and having fun.
Christian.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christian. I joined BPAC back in August of 2024, and I participate in the community engagement, the committee.
Nathan.
Hi, I'm Nathan Lee. I am the a county seat as a Duke liaison. I've been on since summer of 2023, and I am the chair of the Planning and Policy Subcommittee.
Trent.
Trent Cormier, I've been on since June of last year. I'm county at-large member. I serve as the vice chair and on the DevRev committee.
Jeff Mikhalchuk, I'm a city at-large representative. I've been on about 2 years. This is my second stint on BPAC, and I'm the liaison for the city county bike ed implementation plan.
Carl.
Good evening, everybody. Carl Riss, Durham at-large city council member. I'm the liaison to BPAC, and I've been liaison for about a year. So looking forward to our meeting, everybody.
Anna Salvaggio.
Hey everyone, Hannah Salvaggio. I'm the bike and pedestrian planner with the city of Durham and the staff liaison. Also, my screen or my camera is being a little funky, so I'm going to keep it off today. Thanks.
Trevay.
Hey, I'm Trevay Willis, public transit rep. Been on the BPAC since September.
Great. And then once Aditi gets connected, I'll have her introduce herself. Hi, Aditi, can you introduce yourself?
Hi. Yes, I'm Aditi. I am a graduate student at UNC studying public health.
Okay, great. Glad to have you here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I think that's everybody. So we'll go ahead and go through any excused absences, Hannah.
Wendy Jacobs said that she was not going to be able to join. And I think that was it. There were a few people who messaged that Royal said just like 20 minutes ago that he won't be able to make it. And then Chris, you're here. So besides that, that's all I've got.
Okay. Are there any updates on new members or openings?
Yes, so we are still accepting applications for the youth representative position with the county. That was Andre's position. And so I don't think we've gotten any applicants yet. So please definitely spread the word on that. That's a position that's a little more difficult to fill, but really good to have, youth represented. And then the only other thing was excited that Ed actually is on until 2026 June. So we thought he was cycling off this June, but happy to have the confirmation from the county clerks that it has another year. So happy to have him on. But besides that, nothing else.
Great. Does anybody have any adjustments to the agenda? It's a little different than the one that was emailed out. Not hearing any. Do we need a vote to approve the agenda if we're not adjusting it?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Approval for the February minutes and meeting retreat. Have you all had opportunity to read through those? I can open them in a second.
Move they be accepted as written.
All right, we got a motion to approve them. And second, can we, let me open things up again. Get a vote. All those in favor of approving, I guess we should do each the meeting minutes for February 1st. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for February, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, can I get a motion for the retreat minutes?
I move we accept the vote and accept the retreat minutes as written.
Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Those opposed? Wonderful. All right. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to provide comment? Seeing none, Aditi left, so I don't know if you wanted to provide any or not. All right, well, our guest presenters this month are Michelle and Donna from DPS, and they're going to be discussing the family responsibility zones. If you want, you guys can go ahead and share your screens. I'll stop sharing if you would like to
Rather share
start
Donna,
your
or
presentation.
do you want me to?
Do you want to start sharing first,
Yeah, I
since you're
can.
going to begin it? And just to say, we're actually going to also give you just a little bit of an overview of what Safe Routes to School does before getting into detail on the family responsibility zones.
Okay, sounds great.
And then also, I'm not sure if everyone saw the agenda, but John Lawler and Hannah are going to give updates on what's being done with BPAC related to these right after this presentation. So
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We already introduced ourselves, but yeah, I'm the Safe Routes to School planner and Donna is the educator. So we kind of work hand in hand, and I work more from the kind of data infrastructure planning perspective. I have an urban planning background. Donna has a more of an education background, so she works in the bike safety and all of that we'll talk about. And yep, just a quick presentation overview. We'll talk about Safe Routes to School, and then May is Bike Month, where we'll host Rock and Roll to School Day at some local schools, and then Family Responsibility Zones. So community transportation is kind of the department that we're under in DPS. That would be like Christian's job is the community transportation planner, but so that includes all the things coordinating with the city and county and state on different like infrastructure improvements and like, you know, attending meetings like this and things like that. Working with the arrival and dismissal, especially like all things that are related to things besides the yellow school bus. So cars, walking, all of that. And then I'll talk a little bit about transportation data collection in a minute. And of course, Safe Routes to School, which is what we're here to talk about. And the goal of Safe Routes to School is kind of twofold: to make walking and bicycling more safe for students, and then to encourage them to do it more, which kind of go hand in hand. And it's kind of come to be more in the public eye with the family responsibility zones and all of that, but it also exists outside of that. But yep. And then I'll kind of talk about some stuff that I've been doing, which we're kind of in the middle of completing this like school travel survey, which is something that has traditionally gone out every month to schools in DPS, but when that was happening, we were getting a really low response rate and it just like wasn't really valuable. And so we've moved it to being once in the spring and once in the fall. And so just over the past few weeks, we've been having schools submit data where they ask their students how they get to school. Do they walk? Do they take the bus? And we added things like, do they take the city bus? Do they take an Uber? All of this. And it's especially kind of like important and interesting this year with all the family responsibility zones and all the changes. And so we're interested in seeing how that's affecting everybody. And we kind of got thrown off because our original data collection day was the day that we had all those tornado warnings and the big storms and everything. So it's just kind of like finishing coming in now, and we're also getting kind of like qualitative comments on things like that, and then just doing a general inventory of pedestrian infrastructure gaps and kind of those places that if we did an improvement, it would really like unlock the potential for people to walk and bike to school. And yeah, and then I'll turn it over to Donna and she can talk about the education related programming.
Thanks, Michelle. Do you want to share your screen? Or I guess I'm just wondering about like moving through the slides. Or do you want to share screen or should I just open it up? I'll just actually open
Michelle,
it
I think you're muted.
I am, you're right. If you'd like to switch, but then we're gonna have to switch back, so I feel like maybe you can just
up.
tell me to
Okay,
change.
that's fine. That's fine. So if you could just back up one where we were.
And two. Oh, there, here we go. There. Right. There.
Okay. I'll get more in detail about the bike and pedestrian safety in the following slides. Curriculum integration, I'll just mention, since we don't have slides about that, that we've started talking with some of the DPS curriculum specialists and teachers about different ways to integrate pedestrian safety, bike safety, and transit encouragement into regular curriculum, such as math classes or social studies or art or what have you. And I can answer any questions about that at the end if there's time, if anyone's interested. And about transit guides, I'll say too that we created a custom transit guide for each of the DPS high schools and middle schools that have a transit stop nearby. So these are custom per school that lists neighborhoods that bus serves and tips for arriving on time and frequency and things like that. And we've also done some pedestrian safety at some of the bike events. Okay, you can move on. So I'll talk a little bit about what Bike Durham is doing. I know a lot of you know a lot about Bike Durham already and what they're doing with DPS, but for those who don't, we've worked very closely with them. They've been running bike safety classes at DPS schools since 2022. There are at least 16 of the 32 elementary schools that have received programming since 2022. There's a 4-week program of bike safety with regular bikes for 2nd through 5th grade. There's an 8-week program with balance bikes or striders. 1st grade gets one or the other depending on where they fall. So some 1st graders get the strider training, the balance bike training, and some fall into the regular bike training. And so they learn things like fitting helmets, their ABCs, air, brakes, chains, hand signals, and pumping tires. So it's more than just, so they're learning the skills and they're learning safety. Let's see, 9 out of 12 elementary schools who are receiving this program in 2024-25, or 9 of the 12 elementary schools receiving the program have family responsibility zones. And Michelle will get more into detail about family responsibility zones a little bit later. So Michelle, you can advance. Thanks. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing with the pedestrian safety classes. Jacopo at Bike Durham and I joined up to roll out the program. We piloted it at Little River's K through 8 program with the lead PE teacher there. And so we got, we shared the information with her ahead of time. She was game. She was there the whole time. So the 3 of us taught the class. We've got lessons that could be used. They could be facilitated within 20 minutes or 30-minute activity, or for a full 2 class period of 45 minutes. We did the rollout of the entire thing. So we taught about 188 kids over the course of several weeks. So that was pre-K through 3rd grade. And we adjusted, for the different age groups. There's a description available on our website. And so going from here, so we've just concluded that pilot rollout of this pedestrian safety training last week, and we're going to target the schools with family responsibility zones from here. And so the objectives in this this class include choosing sidewalks, crossing driveways and streets, pedestrian signals, crossing with visual barriers, spacing traffic and sidewalks were unavailable, using bright clothing, high vis clothing, and avoiding distractions. So there are lots of games, lots of skits. I think it went pretty well, but where we saw we could improve, we did. So we adjusted based on lessons learned as we went. So Michelle, you can forward. So I've actually already described all of, well, no, I haven't. We did bike safety. I'm sorry. We did pedestrian safety also at Hope Valley. This is one of the schools that it has a family responsibility zone now, although the zone, as of now, there's still a school bus being operated at this school. This family responsibility zone implementation is being delayed because there's construction at a major intersection where the students cross. And so like Durham and I went to the school. We met with the students who would be crossing there. And the PE teacher joined us. And so we did a trial walk. Well, we did like a pedestrian safety lesson in real, at the real location of where these students would cross. So we don't know yet how long the construction is going to go on there, but as long as there's construction there obstructing the sidewalk, those students would still be receiving school bus service. So other lessons, other locations where we have facilitated the pedestrian lessons are at Bike Durham events that I've listed here: Hope Valley, Glen, Lakewood Elementary, and Pearson Town. So, Michelle, you can advance. So we've also been creating a library of resources on our website. So some of these materials are for parents and teachers, and some of them are for students. We've used these when we've had events. We've played game, like some of these are more game related, like the walk and roll bingo. Just gets, it's meant to get the students engaged and observing. For example, they have to look for something in a driveway, so it gets them used to looking out for driveways. They're looking out for traffic signals and signs and whatnot. So some fun ways to get students to get used to paying attention to their surroundings and get more familiar with signage to help them stay safe. And one of the other resources that we have is how to start a walking group or a walking school bus. And yeah, so you can feel free to go to our website for this information. Our website is actually going to be updated pretty soon. So we haven't, we've been, I guess, a little modest so far in what we're developing there, but we're so far still also trying to provide a lot of resources. So Michelle, you can forward. So in May, we have a lot of events coming up. So that is the walk, bike, and roll month. I guess like as well as October. So I guess May is more focused on walking and October is more focused on biking. Or is it? No, I'm sorry, it's the opposite. Yeah, it's the opposite. Although you get both with these events in both months. So we've already we provided the outreach to all of the schools. We've reached out to let them know that this is coming up, to offer our support. And some of the ways that we've supported them in the past is to help identify routes and volunteer opportunities. And that might look like, going to the school, finding out where most of the students are walking from and identifying, the safest route with pedestrian crossings. So we're aiming to increase our off-campus events, which could include rerouting school buses to drop off at the location where students would begin walking from. We did that last year, and that worked out really well. And I would encourage you to go to our website and pull up some of the highlights from last October's events. There's lots of fun things to gather there. And this is also something that BPAC can help with. So we could talk more about that here and also through email if you'd like. Michelle, you can forward. And I'll let Michelle take over from here.
So, family responsibility zones, if you are not familiar or need a refresher, due to the ongoing shortage of bus drivers in Durham, the school board implemented a policy which was in its policies, but had never actually been followed. And it says that in areas within a maximum of a mile around a school, the district can choose to not provide bus transportation. And it also says in the policy something about unless there were hazardous conditions. And so we went through and me and Kristen mostly went through and looked through maps of all of the areas around these 21 schools that were determined to have at least some walkability. Some schools like Mangum or something are just like on a highway almost, and you couldn't walk there at all. But so we went through these 21 schools and used this criteria, which the main two things were that if students could get to school without having to walk along a high volume street without a sidewalk or cross a street with a speed limit greater than 35 miles per hour without the assistance of a traffic signal or an RRFB or a crossing guard, then they were in the family responsibility zone. And so the crossing, like a regular just striped crosswalk with no other support, is not considered enough to cross a street with a speed limit of 35. But so you can find all of the maps currently on the Durham Public Schools website. And then families were of course reached out to individually to let them know that they would be not receiving bus service anymore. And then so this was implemented in mid-January of 2025. And me and Kristen went in, did site visits at some of the schools that we expected to be most impacted based on numbers of students that would be impacted and based on the culture that we knew that some of those schools had. Like Lakewood Elementary already kind of has an established culture of walking, so we did go there, but they were kind of like, yeah, we've already got this on under control. But so we went to some schools. Like Burton had the largest observed increase in walkers that we saw. Most of them were walking to McDougal Terrace, which was pretty close by, but that's a pretty safe walk. They don't really have to cross any major roads or anything like that. And then Kristen visited some of these. Interesting thing we noticed at Sandy Ridge was that many students, their family responsibility zone is basically just the neighborhood that's directly across the street, but the street is Hebron Road and it's a pretty large road, and students were dashing across the street without using, there's a signal, but you have to go all the way up a hill, like down the street, and students were not doing that. Observed there. And like we said, Hope Valley will potentially be one of the, if not, it might be the most impacted school, if not one of the highly impacted schools, but currently it's on hold due to the construction. And then this is just kind of an FYI. I know a lot of conversations have been about school crossing guards, and so this is just all of the current locations of school crossing guards. And we just want to kind of reiterate that the crossing guards are Durham Police Department employees, kind of indirectly. And so like we do work with the police department on that, but we don't have direct control over like who they're hiring and how many people they're hiring and things like that. And so that's been something that we've been trying to work through with them. And I think Hannah might have some updates on what's going on with that. But yeah, if you have, I think that's, yep, that's it. If you have any questions or anything, just let us know. We continue to chat about all of this. Yeah.
I see Jeff's hand is raised.
I have a question about transit. So one of the things that I find a little frustrating is there's now the Go Durham #4 bus serves Northern High School.
Right.
Where the bus stop on the outbound is south of Wellington Drive with no sidewalk between the school and the stop. The stop has no amenities. It's just a sidewalk with a pole with a route sign. There's no ADA pad. That stop really needs to be on the northern side of Wellington, because then the students wouldn't have to cross Wellington and they would have a safe sidewalk to the school. That's a half a block relocation of the stop there. So how do we get, I guess, Durham Public Schools talking to City Department of Transportation and move that stop?
I've been talking with them a lot as I did the research on these stops, and I was actually at that stop that you're talking about, like one of the first. I think that might be the first place I went, and I did. Yeah, I could see that it's far from optimal. It could be downright dangerous, and it's the only thing that's there at this. Well, the last time I saw it, there was like a temporary pad there with a post. I can bring that to Go Durham as we continue our discussions. I know that they just put in a stop at the northern end of Northern's campus going north, and the bus, I mean, so students could choose to stay on the same side of the street as the school and then, just do the loop.
So would that stop be by Argonne Drive? Is
it Argonne Drive? There's two entrances to Northern. Is it Argonne that's at the northern, that's the northern entrance at the fields, at the soccer fields? There's a stop there now, which is new as of this year.
So that's definitely an improvement.
Yeah, it's an improvement because otherwise they were getting off at the convenience store and walking through the grass for quite a ways. But I know that they know that they know that there needs to be improvements there, just like at Southern, and there are improvements coming to the 3B at least. I'm not sure what else they have in store for the 4, but I can talk to them.
Thank you.
Sure. There's another hand raised.
Yeah. Brian, what's your question?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. You mentioned some surveys at the beginning, so I have a question about that actually. I feel like one of the constituencies we need to work harder to understand and represent are people and families who utilize cycling and walking out of economic necessity rather than those that choose it as a matter of lifestyle. And I'm wondering if you capture that distinction in your surveys.
In this survey, in this specific survey, I would say we don't. It's just basically it's like the teachers asking their students, how did you get to school today? And they just answer, either walking or bus or whatever. And then the teachers just enter like 10 students walked today, 12 students took the bus. There is an open-ended part of the survey for the teachers to fill out. So sometimes the teachers do like know something about their students and they say something, but I would say it's not something we directly collect in that survey. But we have, as far as like the family responsibility zone specific engagement, I would say we've kind of trying to make an effort to engage those types of families. Like at Hope Valley, we went to the like PTA meeting town hall situation that they had, which was kind of I would say those kind of families coming to like ask about walking and things like that. And we would like to do more with other schools. There are some schools on this survey that responded like, you know, parents are at work and they don't have time to take their kids to school. And so that is something I want to do, is reach out to the schools that have a lot of teachers that stuff like that and be like, can we support that with, you know, walking groups and stuff like that. So, but I agree with you.
Yeah, I would definitely count a work schedule as economic necessity there. So thanks. I'm just looking for data. Thanks.
Yeah.
Chris, what's your question?
Yeah, I actually am going to cheat and have two questions. Hopefully that's okay. So one is, I guess, around the infrastructure. You know, we're talking a lot about how there's these areas where we've had to shrink the zones due to safety obstacles, whether temporarily or permanently. I also think like even within some of these zones, there's a lot of us that feel like there's pretty suboptimal infrastructure here. So I'm kind of wondering if you guys have any perspective on things we can do to kind of help advocate for that change. You know, I've got some ideas in my head in terms of kind of doing an ask to city council and or the transportation department about prioritizing facilitation of these walk zones whenever a road project occurs within the theoretical maximum, right? So even if it's not an area that's currently part of the walk zone, it's a priority to get traffic calming, sidewalks, crosswalks, things like that. But I was curious if you guys have any thoughts on that and how we can best facilitate that. The second question would be around the education side of it. I think it's great that, you know, we're doing this education around students, teaching them the skills they need. But, you know, one of the things that we deal with a lot as an advocacy group is we're focused on sort of the individual actions. And oftentimes it's those infrastructure things that are most important. But I think that the individual actions are a component. But I kind of wonder if it's helpful to take some of these educational materials, maybe adapt them to be useful to parents as well about appropriate behavior when driving. It might be a great way to easily provide this information to sort of reinforce a culture around, you know, yielding at crosswalks, being careful about right on reds, watching your speed and the consequences of speed as it relates to collisions with pedestrians. You know, it's very hard to reach a broad set of drivers, but I think parents are going to be very motivated and responsive to things that they can do to keep their children and other parents' children safe. And it may kind of be a great little way to inject a culture of that pretty easily. So I just kind of want to throw that out there as a thought. That's all I got.
Let you take that, Donna.
Well, I'll speak to the education of parents side of it. We do have information for parents. You know, we've got our tips and whatnot but you're right. We haven't created anything geared exactly towards driver safety, but I do have a meeting tomorrow with someone from, is it North Carolina Bike and Walk, who has they do like a driver friendly training.
Bike walk and see.
Bike walk and see. Thank you. I'm still, you know, I'm still kind of new to all of this. I came in like after working in higher ed forever and international education, and I'm just a bike advocate and trainer. So
I've attended one of those like safe driver trainings from them. It's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. So we're gonna go through like a little trial course tomorrow. Me and the person who coordinates driver's ed, so that, you know, if she buys into it, like she vets programming, educational programming for driver's ed teachers and students. And once we get an idea of exactly what it looks like, I'm advocating for adopting it into the driver's ed training. But I do like the idea of, or, you know, the question of like, what can we do more to advocate for safe driving We know what at this point with our pedestrian safety with the elementary school students, we did encourage them to go home and talk to their parents about some of the things that they learned. I know that would, that's like passing it on through them, but some of the things we talked about is, paying attention. Like we did a skit where there's a driver texting and, they come in, they have a collision with a pedestrian. I mean, it's done in kind of a funny way because we're talking about little kids, but they get the point.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit about the beginning of your question about advocating for specific things with the city. I know like me and Kristen and Hannah have been in contact with like Sean Egan and with the city about kind of those like quicker build projects that can impact the areas around fund responsibility zones. And they've been, of course, infrastructure things are slow to happen, but like we definitely have that communication going. And so if anybody if you're like, oh, I have this specific idea around the specific school because it's like in your neighborhood or something like that, we'd be happy if you contacted me, contacted Hannah, and we can like put that on our list. And then me and Kristen are also on, like both of us are kind of on different parts of the committees for the like bike walk plan and things happening like that. So we're kind of providing that school advocacy perspective. But yeah, we love anybody's, personal perspective on this because of course we haven't traveled every road in Durham. So and a lot of this is more subjective, but yeah.
Great. Does anybody else have any other questions? Not hearing any. Okay, great. Well, thank you guys for presenting. You're welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting. Our next topic actually involves the family responsibility zone at Hope Valley. So that might be interesting to y'all.
Yeah,
But otherwise,
I would stay on for that, Michelle and Donna, just so you're in the loop on it.
Yeah, I'm planning to stick around for that. Thanks.
Okay.
Very great. All right. Well, the next item is sort of a two-parter. I'll start with the recommendation letter for the Hope Valley Elementary School. Let me share my screen again, and I'll add it to the chat so that in case people need to look for it. Okay, so every time I do this, it makes y'all a lot smaller. So this is something that John Lawler drafted. It's kind of gone through a few iterations. John, do you want to sort of provide more feedback or more description of what this is? Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
After the February 1st retreat, a group of us went to Hope Valley to take a look at the safety issues, primarily around the kids walking from the north family responsibility zone north of University Drive, because those are the ones that had safety issues. The ones from the south really don't have many. And that's also where the large population is of the kids going to the school from those two zones. One thing you have to realize is things have been on hold. So we found some things that need to be fixed, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But 60 to 70% of the kids that are in that northern zone were never being bused anyway. They've been walking all of this time. And the only kids that have been affected by the slowdown because of the construction are the additional 35 to 40 kids that would be there. So a very large group is already walking to the school from that zone. And the interesting thing about that is for the majority of them, English is not their first language. So there are a number of challenges for the safety. It's the language, it's the age of the kids, and it's also some challenges with the infrastructure here. If you look at the northern zone, I can't use my pointer, but basically all the kids are going either by the sidewalk on the west side of Chapel Hill Road going south, or they're walking south to the north sidewalk on University Drive and heading east. In either case, they're coming to the intersection of University Drive and Chapel Hill Road. And that is a very, very dangerous intersection. If you can scroll down in the document to the next page.
This one?
Yeah, go up one, go up
Oh, okay.
to the speed. First thing you have to realize is the speeds at this intersection on University Drive, the speed limits are 35 miles an hour, but the typical speed is 35 to 45. So they're going 5 to 10 miles an hour faster. And on Chapel Hill Road, the speed limit is 35, but they're typically going 1 to 5 miles an hour faster, okay? And on Dixon Road, it's only 25 miles an hour, but the average speed is 10 to 15 miles faster than that, okay? Because Dixon Road is a very easy pass through to go down to Martin Luther King. So people are using it as a through road to get through there, okay? And they're going too fast. So speed is a factor. Now, if you go down one more page, and if you can back out so we can see the, well, okay. So this is the intersection from a satellite view. In red, there is an old corner curb setup, okay? Just to the left of that, it was a continuous flow lane, okay, that has been blocked, okay? The infrastructure for the corner is still there. It has ramps and curbs and lights and push buttons, okay? But one of the things, there's the continuous flow lane was blocked, and you can kind of see 3 little dots there. Those are hazard signs that are blocking it off. I will tell you 2 of those are now knocked down. Somebody's still trying to use that as a continuous flow lane, so it's becoming dangerous again. So speed is one of the issues here. If you're looking down at this intersection, you can see the crosswalks, and they all have push buttons to walk signs. You push to get to activate the light, okay? We've now visited these and checked the lights 4 times. 3 times they weren't working, okay? That means the kids today are crossing with push lights not working the majority of time, okay? Not sure why that keeps happening, but we were surprised to see after they were fixed that they've gone down again, okay? So we may be working against somebody else who's making a request, or it could be just an equipment issue, but it's a problem. So the thing you have to realize is the kids are all coming to this intersection, and they now have to cross University Drive from the northwest to the southwest corner, and then they cross the Dixon Drive from the southwest to the southeast corner. But each of those crossings, they're competing with drivers who have the green light on the other road that they're not crossing, who are making right turns and left turns. And they come to that intersection a bit hot in terms of speed. And now that you get the kids who are only elementary school age kids having to negotiate and compete for the crosswalk space with cars that are trying to get through that same space. But they're also competing with the drivers that are at the stop signs on the red lights who are trying to go right on red. Okay, so this is way too dangerous. This might be okay in a college environment, but it's not okay for an elementary school kids environment, especially when the lights are having maintenance issues with the push to walk sign. So that's the first primary issue. The second is if you're looking down at this and see where the 4 crosswalks are, there's no highlights. You can barely notice they're there. They're just lines there. This intersection needs to be boldly highlighted. You can see there is a school sign on University Drive as you're approaching that's now been paved over. Okay, you can't see that sign. It's only half there because it's got pavement on top of it. Okay, So it doesn't exist. So coming to the intersection, you just don't have enough attention being drawn to the fact that something's going on here, that this is an important crosswalk, that this is a school zone. That all has to be improved. So those are two of the issues. Sorry, let me just go to my version.
Do you want me to scroll to anything specifically?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just lost my place a little bit.
You're good.
So the visibility is there. The other thing you have to look at is the infrastructure at this location. Go back up a little bit. From the point of view of the little island in the corner, whether you're approaching this intersection across the parking lot of the business on Chapel Hill Road or across the pavement for what would have been partly the continuous flow lane going down the north side of University Road, there are no sidewalks in either direction. There's no curbs, no sidewalks. There's nothing to protect the kids walking along there, and there's nothing that says, kids, here's exactly where you're supposed to walk. Okay. When they took out the continuous flow lane, they didn't do any infrastructure updates, but I think they were probably expecting whoever develops this corner lot that has all the trees to probably be expected to do that infrastructure development, and it just was never developed. Okay. So where we are today with our recommendations, if you'll scroll down to the recommendation page. One, we don't want the kids competing with the drivers making turns. We want this intersection to be no turn on red. And when you push the walk lights to activate, there should be no green lights going at the same time until after the walk light is closed. Okay. Doesn't mean it happens at every time the light changes, but if somebody is pushed to walk line, that activates this slow down a process. Traffic doesn't get a green light to start until the walk light is finished. There should be no competition. And if there's no right turn on red, there's absolutely no turning going on during the time the kids are in the crosswalk. So that's the first recommendation. Second is to add bold high visibility stripes with thermal paint on the 4 crosswalks at this intersection. It makes a night and day difference in terms of the visibility to drivers. And they've got to go back and repaint the school signs on University Drive. This one has been paved over, the one you see in the picture. The other one that's on the other side, on the east side of the school, is just kind of worn over time. But both of them need to be repainted. So that would improve the visibility of the location. The third recommendation is to change the speed on Chapel Hill Road from 35 miles an hour to 25. There is no reason for this road to be 35 miles an hour. You already have somewhere between 60 and 70 kids coming from the northern zone, and now you're going to add 35 more that the drivers are going to have to deal with. Okay. And they're walking and crossing all of the driveways and the entryways to the apartment complexes, etc. That traffic just needs to be slowed down on Chapel Hill Road. There's no justification for 35 miles an hour. On Dixon Road, we need to add some speed calming. That people are using it as a pass through to get through to Martin Luther King, regardless of whether the schools are. We don't know what the speeds are when the blinking lights are going, because the map where we get the speed information doesn't differentiate that. But a lot of the kids are going back and forth and trying to cross the roads. We don't need that type of speed on Dixon. We need to have them actively slowed down with some speed bumps. Okay. And the last thing is to add some temporary infrastructure elements to make the northwest corner safe. We need to define where the sidewalks are, just using a roller and some paint. Put some blue paint to say, here's where you walk. It doesn't have to last forever, but it probably would not be thermal. It's not getting the attention from the cars because it's just foot traffic on it. But we need to paint a sidewalk in lieu of that. That's across the parking lot on Chapel Hill Road, and that is down the side of the road going on the north side of University. The second part of that is we need to provide some protection from the cars, either with concrete guardrails, concrete barriers, guardrails, could be just a line of vertical posts that have been mounted into the road. It could be the use of planters, okay? I think we have a representative from the PTA who says the PTA will be glad to keep the planters going if that's the solution, okay? So those are the temporary, is to create infrastructure there in lieu of a permanent one. The long-term recommendations, there are two of them. One is to change the speed within the school zone on University Drive to go from 35 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour during the period when kids are going to school. They come into a school zone now, but they're not required to slow down on University Drive. That's too fast coming into this intersection. But this is a little more expensive because now you've got to have blinking lights. You've got more infrastructure to put in. It will take time. It will take a little budget for that to happen. The second part is to replace the temporary infrastructure elements on the northwest corner with real infrastructure, adding sidewalks, adding curbs, squared ramps, etc. So that's a more permanent thing. And it probably will not happen until that property is developed. I can't imagine why it's still undeveloped at this point, but unless the city decides to put it in their budget and do that, because that's not going to be cheap. But the temporary, the things that are in the short-term recommendations, those are things that can happen quickly. You can reprogram the traffic lights and walk lights that are already there in about 2 to 3 hours. You can take 2 or 3 hours to add the no turn on red signs to hang beside the lights. We're now getting out of winter, so there's no reason we can't go ahead and use a thermal paint solution for the high visibility bold stripes and for the school signs. So all of these things can happen during the period when we're not adding an extra 35 to 40 kids because of the construction work farther up Chapel Hill Road. Keep in mind, the challenge is the majority of the kids, 60 to 70% of them, are already walking and dealing with these issues every day. So going back to history, we did the audit on February 1st. On March 5th, Mary Rose and I met with Principal Miller and presented the findings. We walked to the intersection. He saw what we saw. He agreed with the recommendations. Last Saturday, Mary Rose and I met with Michelle Price-Fromm, who is a PTA member extraordinaire. And I say that because she is a lobbyist for the state in the state of North Carolina. She's the executive director of, of North Carolina for the People Action. She's fighting for democratic voting processes at the state level. So she's a person who's used to getting things done. And she is a person that Principal Miller brought in to this. And he kind of told us, he said, yeah, I've got some pretty powerful people on the PTA who can come to help us with this. And so we actually got an email from her. And so Mary Rose and I met with her on Saturday. In both of our meetings with Principal Miller and with Melissa Chrome, we talked through the process of what did we find. Here's what the solutions are. The short-term solutions can be done quickly. The long-term solutions will take more time. But we also talked about the politics of how this now needs to happen. And we were given, Mary Rose and I were given some very clear direction from Carl Risk and Wendy Jacobs that this needed to come from DPS to bring together the North Carolina Department of Transportation and the City Department of Transportation to be able to deal with this issue. The DPS created the FRZ zone policy. It's their problem. They now need to take ownership of that and invite these two groups who are the only ones that can implement this solution, okay? The city department can make the changes, but they have to be blessed by the North Carolina DOT. And specifically, we're looking for the head of the city department, as well as Becca Gallus, who is someone new responsible for this area within North Carolina DOT. But critical to this is the two of them working through DPS Central to have that request come from them, okay? Because this might come up at another school, and we don't want to have the situation being where we don't have the pull as an advisory to make that happen. I initially was requesting the help from Carl and from Wendy, and they both pushed back immediately and said, no, this is a DPS issue. They've got the pull to do this. This will come up again. It'll give us a way to go forward. And I really thank both of them for that guidance. I believe it is absolutely the right way to go forward. So they have that, and we've pledged to help them. If they need another meeting with DPS at the school before they're willing to take that plunge, we're willing to be there and do that. We're willing to be there and be there when the NCDOT and the Department of Transportation, if they have a meeting about it, and they might delegate the people who come to that, but it needs to happen at the school. They need to see the problem, because this isn't part of the normal way things happen with these groups. Normally you put things into a mill of recommendations, a budgeting process, and 2 or 3 years later, you might get a solution in place. We're looking for something for the short-term solutions to happen within the time that the school zone policy is delayed due to the construction on the sidewalk on Chapel Hill Road. So we need to get it done as quickly as possible. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is great work. Thank you for all you did with this, and for pushing this. It definitely needs a champion, and I think you've doing a great job of being that. I wanted to talk about my comment with the school zone thing, because this is a thing that I've looked at as a way for the city to play a little bit of hardball with NCDOT. I obviously don't know the nuances of this, so definitely those transportation experts like Hannah, feel free to chime in. I am not a lawyer, but the general statute's pretty clear that municipalities have the authority to lower speed limits in school zones to 20 miles per hour. And it does not accept NCDOT streets. And so I don't know if that's just we try to play nice with NCDOT, but maybe this is an opportunity where we can just kind of evaluate how our relationship is going with NCDOT. I think that's an area that can really help out on a lot of different areas. And there's places where I think we inexplicably don't have school zones where we should. But on that one, we might not be able to do the blinking warning lights, but even lowering the speed limit gives an opportunity to more aggressively enforce speeding. It becomes a more serious violation. Not that that's the way I want it to go. I'd rather the street design make it safer. And I think the other short-term things, including the temporary solutions to make it safer, are more optimal. But yeah, that's what I got.
Kristen, I saw that you're here and you raised your hand, so I want you to speak first before Carl does.
Hey, sure. Sorry to be late, everyone.
You're good.
I'm glad you brought up the school zone project because that's actually a funded project that was in the CIP and is being accelerated by the bond to put in school zone flashers on University and lower the speed limit. I don't know about the timeline for the project. I've brought that to the transportation department's attention as something that would be really good to accelerate, but that would redo the pavement markings that John mentioned and bump them out, I think, to include the private middle school that's also on University there. So to encompass Hope Valley and the private school. And it would put in the school zone flashers as well. And Chris is right that the city of Durham manages all the school zones in the city, regardless of whether they're on NCDOT roads or city roads. I think when it's on an NCDOT road, there's like a pretty basic MOU, like some type of form that they fill out, but there's multiple streets that are NCDOT that have speed limit reductions with school zone flashers, and the city handles all the maintenance and timing adjustments for those. I probably have a lot of other clarifications, but if there's a few other questions, and sharing access to this, I've seen a lot of these recommendations because Principal Miller sent them to me and called me about them a few days ago. So I'm happy to chime in on these if it's in a Google Doc format. Like, some of these are in various stages. I'm sure Hannah can chime in on that as well. But I think it's a really great topic for this group to discuss from an advocacy perspective how any of these could be accelerated. But many of them have been identified in different places, but kind of bringing that into one place is the advantage here of what John and the team have put together. So I'll take my hand down for now and I'll pass it to Carl.
Thanks, Kristen. I just want to say, John, you and the rest of the BPAC members have done some yeoman's work on this. Really appreciate the effort and the sort of like the inspiration you brought to really doing the walk zone or the walk audit and putting together these recommendations in one place. It's great work. And I think has kind of sped up the conversation about how do we make it safer for kids to get in through the family responsibility zone to Hope Valley Elementary. I just wanted to clarify too, I think you're right that this is like, ultimately we need the school system to lead on this. I'm glad that Kristen's here. It's not that the city in any way doesn't care about this or sort of like, it's more that just in terms of process, it makes sense for the school to lead. We have resources on the part of the transportation department, also in public works, which would do any of the building if there were, sidewalks built or other things built there. So I think it covers two agencies of the city that would be involved in this. So we firmly support this work on the part of the school board and happy for them to lead on this stuff. So thanks for mentioning that, and thanks for all the good work you've done. And I think it's great that BPAC's involved. I think, as you said, John, when we first talked about this, I think when you first came up with the recommendations maybe a month or so ago, that I think this is a great case study of how we can, show that this can work in a timely way in one particular school and use that as a model for other schools. I will say on the DOT thing, I think, and John mentioned we have a new partner with Becca Gallus, who is the Division 5 engineer. That's the sort of the key person in NCDOT Division 5, which we're in. She's a kind of a new sort of like personality there. She's a woman with a small child, so I think she gets a lot of these safety concerns in a way some of the guys we've dealt with have not been quite as responsive, to be honest. And so I think there's an opportunity here and in other ways that we're working with her, for example, on Duke and Gregson and Roxborough Mangum to do to get some quicker response from her. I know Sean Egan at Transportation has met with her. So I think there's a chance with Becca. I think we should really, really test out that relationship and see if she's willing to do some of the things we've talked about that would need DOT approval. So I think these are all opportunities. And I think, I'm excited about what we can do to make this much safer for kids. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. I want to kind of like be mindful of the time a little bit. Part of why we brought this up was and I don't know if we'd be doing this tonight specifically, but because several other people were at the walk audit and have focused a lot on this intersection, we wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to review these. If there's anything that we maybe missed in this report, feel free to include it. I think a lot of the comments aren't necessarily things that we need to like change for the recommendations. But if there's anything that you're seeing that's like, we need to maybe reword this, or this needs to be clarified a little bit more or something like that, we could do that. Otherwise, if everybody is okay with the document as is, we could vote to have it be like a more official BPAC document that can be distributed in a more official capacity.
Can I add one more comment?
Sure.
One of the things we have to realize is what our background is and what NCDOT and the Department of Transportation bring to this. We're not traffic engineers, okay? But it's very obvious of what the problems are. The solutions might need some subtlety, and that'll come from the experts, okay? And so the key thing is to get to a point where they come and see the problem the same way we saw it. And they're going to be focused on things like, well, if we make this no turn on red, then we've got to lengthen the timing of the green lights, et cetera, to get the same amount of traffic through. Well, that's all the details. That's for them, that's formulas, okay? In terms of what the barricade, the protection at the intersection would be, they will know what they've got sitting around in a storage somewhere in terms of whether it should be barricades or guardrails. They know what their inventory is, so they can bring that type of suggestion to the table. We don't need to get too caught up in the details. We just need them to come to the table, agree that the problem is the problem, and they need to get something done sooner rather than later. That's all I had.
Yeah, that's good clarification there. Does anybody have any reason to say we don't vote to make this an official document today? Aside from the fact that I sent it out earlier today, and you might not have had a chance to read it. Okay, well, do we want to move to approve this document?
I move we approve this document as written as an official BPAC communication.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Great. It's passed. John, you're welcome to email it to Melissa now.
I'll take care of that.
Mary Rose, this is Kristen.
Yes.
I just
Hi.
briefly, I'm seeing now that you shared the document with me, I can see the numbers at the top, and I just wonder, I feel like those numbers are getting at the demand, like, the potential for students that could be walking and biking to school. But as of a few weeks ago, I think, and I don't know if maybe Principal Miller shared this with John, but only about 20 families that had been previously riding the bus have indicated that they will walk once the zone is implemented, and like 7 to 10 have given permission slips to be independent walkers. But sharing how many kids this could affect, like there's another way to frame that, I think, that would be like what it is now versus, improving the intersection and encouraging people, like making it more desirable to walk. That's the that could be the 60% to 70% of kids. Like that could be the goal, that 60 to 70% of kids who live in the FRZ walk. But I don't think that's going to be day one.
Well, my understanding is they're already walking 60 to 70, and that was a figure given to us by Principal Miller. Because keep in mind, the kids that are being bused are only the kids whose parents requested they be bused.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So, and this is within a half a mile of the school. The majority of the parents didn't request that. Okay. And the ones that didn't probably are parents who would have had challenges without older brothers or older sisters, to lead the walk or whatever, or that maybe both parents work. There wasn't anyone to help make that walk. There could be a variety of reasons why they wanted their kids bused, but the majority of parents did not want that. And so those kids are already walking and dealing with the situation, as I understand it, from our conversations with Principal Miller.
Yeah, he made it seem that roughly like 80 kids were already walking.
Yes.
Before the FRZs were implemented.
And that's just from the North Zone.
Yeah, just from the North Zone.
I mean, the day that I went out and observed 3 families cross the intersection, that's all I've ever about typical every time I've been called out to Hope Valley. I mean, I'm happy to help if you want to try to reframe the numbers. I don't, if he might have been talking about the total number of walkers, because a lot of families walk from outside the FRZ, actually. There are families that choose to cross Hope Valley 751 and they're not even in the FRZ. So he could have been talking about like a percentage of students who live close to the school within a buffer, but within the actual FRZ, it's 180 families, 140 of whom had previously requested bus service, and almost all of those are in the northern part, not currently walking.
Yeah, there might also be some students in the FRZ, like south of the school, which is currently active, that walk. I'm not sure, but that could be possible. I also know that I had heard from the bus routers that, you know, previously to the FRZ, that they were having to take 2 bus loads of kids from Colonial Townhomes. Like they would take them and then they would come back and take another load. So there were a significant amount of kids that at least were taking the bus before and probably still are from Colonial.
Okay, well, we can work on maybe clarifying those numbers with the principal. It does sound like what he said to us when we were there, but maybe we were understanding him wrong, or maybe he said it incorrectly. Chris,
I'll touch base with him tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you. Chris, your hand's raised.
Yeah, I don't want to drag this on any longer, but I'll try to keep it quick. So you said that there was already parents who are walking, and including those outside the school zone or the walk zone. That reminded me of some stuff that I'd read about interesting solutions that some schools had explored in other places in the country involving doing things like actually closing down like the block around a school or something like that. So that way, you know, there was like a designated drop-off zone that was like a block away, but it creates a safer place and more active movement for the students for like a little period of time. I thought that was kind of an interesting solution. Maybe there's some places where we could experiment with that in Durham. The other one is having a drop-off zone, a safe drop-off zone that is within the walk zone for parents to give an alternative place to drop off and allow students to, again, be, you know, a little bit more mobile, at least for like a short period of time walking to school. Those could be things that maybe also improve the transportation situation. Obviously, each school would have to be looked at. It's whether there's things around that could be doing that. But I thought those are kind of interesting things when I've seen that implemented in other places. I know you have a lot on your plate, but maybe something to put on the back burner.
Great, thank you. All right, I'd like to move on to the second part of this one item, which was the Safe Routes to School video production with Hannah.
Yeah, and it'll be much shorter, but still exciting. So I know we talked about this a little bit at the last full commission meeting, but hoping to have BPAC put together a video that outlines how to walk to school safely, some common, you know, activities or like things that students might encounter on their walk to school. We also kind of, to the point that came up in conversation earlier, are thinking of building in a part of the video that focuses on, as a driver, how can you engage safely in a school zone? And as a bicyclist, how can you engage safely in a school zone? So huge shout out to Royal, who is volunteering his videography skills. In the next week or so, he should be sending out a poll in terms of availability. Would encourage anyone who is interested in participating in the video, being a on-screen talent, a BPAC star, to fill out your availability, and we'll find the time that works for most people and go forth from there. I'll also be sending out tomorrow. I wanted to make sure to give folks a heads up today before I send it out. A Google Doc with a draft version of the script that kind of highlights the key things we're going to want to cover in the video, and welcome any thoughts, feedback, edits to that as we kind of think through the key items we're going to want to cover in that. Hoping to get it scheduled in the next few weeks, but also know Royal's volunteering his time, so working around his schedule a bit.
Great, thank you.
Any questions on that? All good?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you envisioned what that would look like as far as who participates? Would there be any elementary age people in the videos?
That is a great.
Extras?
Yeah, for right now, we have BPAC members who have volunteered, and then we also have huge shout out to Rosie, our youth representative, who has also noted that she's hoping to loop in some of her friends again, schedule allowing. So I don't know that we currently have any elementary school folks, but maybe more middle school.
If you
Yeah.
do have any students though that would be interested, I mean, ideally we would like to have younger kids in this. We just don't know any kids that we can use as models. So if
Yes.
you know any around here, that would be awesome. We just, again, yeah, it's the youngest person is Rosie that we know. So at least that was in the conversations.
Yeah. I don't know necessarily if there's any requirements for getting like parents to sign off on having their kids in a video like this. So that might be a
Yes.
hiccup.
We do.
Yeah,
we
we
have
can do it.
forms that
Okay.
we have with the city, but yeah, if there are any volunteers, Donna or Michelle, that you know kind of participate in these programs, yeah, we'd love
Okay,
to.
we can think about it. We'll talk about it.
Awesome. And we can commit to like once we have the day and time figured out a bit more, we can circle back with you and say, hey, here's when it's going to be. And like, if it like, then we can go from there if it seems like it might work for folks. But yes, would love to have some elementary school students. Unfortunately, I think all of us are older, but maybe not with elementary school children in the group. So we're missing that sweet spot.
It sounds
Yeah.
like you're going to include middle school students there.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. I know a bunch of elementary school kids. I don't know. We'll have to see if they're up for it, but yeah, the neighborhood is filled with elementary school aged kids, so I could try and ask some parents.
Awesome. Rosie,
good.
coming through as always. We love to see it. MVP. Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
if there's a general call to be made once you're ready to do it, like some of the old school neighborhood listservs, there's plenty of kids in my neighborhood. So even if I don't know them well, if we blast it out to those channels, you'll probably get some volunteers.
Yeah, so maybe this is new ideas sprouting. Once we have a day and time kind of identified, maybe we can draft just a brief blurb, send it out to this group and say, hey, can you share this with your listservs? And we'll have just like a stack of the consent forms at the day that we're doing it and just make sure that it's signed off for anyone who's there to participate.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Any other questions for Hannah? Great. Well, we'll move on to the next item. And Donna and everybody from DPS, you're still welcome to stay the whole time. But we're doing more like business stuff. So if you want to leave, you're definitely welcome to leave.
Okay,
so
great.
we're gonna,
Thank you. Bye,
yeah, of
everyone.
course. Bye,
Thanks
Donna.
for the invitation. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you and to hear more about what you're doing. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Feel free to reach out. Any
Thanks.
questions?
All right, so we're going to discuss upcoming potential presenters. I did move things around a little bit because Brian Taylor is going to be filling in for Hannah during our in-person meeting in April. I moved him down to May. I don't know if that still works out for Brian, or if it's even like too late in the process for this project to be having that presentation. But I moved Bike Durham and the transit travel training to April, and I have confirmed that that works for them. Brian, does it work for you in May to do the Foster Corcoran Blackwell?
Brian's
Or is that too late?
too late.
I
Yeah,
see.
it's the outreach period right now through mid to late April in terms of collecting input on the design.
Okay.
And I have one of the flyers, so I'll put that in the chat so people can participate in that and stay updated with the website and all of that as well. And then also, Mary, I put as the last bullet on the agenda as the changed by youth ambassadors, which it sounded like with conversations with Donna that they are planning to also come in at the April meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure that gets updated in the write-up.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I put that in there.
Okay. Do we need, I guess we can just add that to this. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's a few high schoolers who've made videos related to their experience riding, I believe, just the public bus. So they're about 2 minutes long each, and they wanted to present them to us. So that's going to be during the April meeting as well. Okay, so since this is going to be too late, Tony, do you think we could get Dr. Frey to present in May? It's an in-person meeting. I don't know if that makes that more complicated. I guess we could still Zoom in.
Actually, when I talked to Chris about this last month, he indicated he kind of had a preference to come to an in-person meeting if he could.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
he told me he'd rather come to an in-person meeting.
Great. Well, could I have, I mean, I guess we don't have to do this quite yet, but if you want to let him know that we have him for May on the schedule, and then we can send out like a more official invitation prior to that.
Okay, I'll let him know. What day is the May meeting? Is the 20th, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll let him know.
Great. Chris, what you got?
I am really excited about that talk, but I was wondering, I think some of y'all know Dr. Frey. I was curious if you could pass along a personal request of maybe just having a blurb about any info about other forms of emissions from vehicles, if they've looked into this at all, like particulate emissions and noise emissions. I feel like it's very related. He doesn't have to obviously like do anything with this. I know it's a lot of work to create a presentation.
Yeah, he probably could. Well, he certainly could speak to particulate and ozone emissions as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Noise emissions, I'm not so sure, but those he are part of what his research program.
Awesome.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Dr. Frey was my air pollutions professor at NC State. He also was just the director of.
He was the assistant administrator for the Office of Research and Development at EPA.
At EPA. Yeah. So that term just ended, and now he's back at NC State. And yeah, whenever I was in his class, it was like an extracurricular thing to have him set up some weird thing on my car so he could, when we drove around, he could record all of the emissions from it. And that's probably what helped me pass that class. It's the extra credit. But it was cool. So that's the kind of research that he does. So now that we're one presenter short, does anybody have any suggestions for June? We have a lot of potential speakers here. I'll cross out this line.
I'm gonna throw this out and then I need to actually check with them, but the MPP students from Duke who are working on the policy project that we asked them to, it should be done by then. They might be, the only challenge is I don't know if they're gonna be out and about doing their summer internship. So I would say like light maybe on having the MPP students share their findings in June.
Okay. Is that one that we already have on here, or is that a new one?
I don't think it's already on there. I think it's new.
Okay. MPP students?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything they want to throw in the ring?
Yeah, Mary Rose, and Brian may have more on this as well in terms of the actual sort of nitty-gritty timeline. But I know that I was just on a call today for the bike and walk plan that's being updated, the city county, the first time we're doing this together. And so the timeline calls for the final plan to be done like summer, fall 2025. So I think we should get on the schedule for whenever that is is finalized, and have them, as soon as possible come present to BPAC.
That was going to be my suggestion. We will
Okay.
have comprehensive maps and maybe draft priorities by June. We'll definitely have comprehensive networks, so we'll have something for people to react to instead of just putting comments on a blank map. So usually that you get everyone's a little more interested. So we're looking over all those draft things now, and we're kind of in the nitty-gritty of prioritization. But yeah, I think when we looked at the timelines today with Alta, it looked like late May or June was going to be the second phase of public outreach, which I would like to be the biggest, really.
That's actually better. You're right. That's a better idea than the final plan. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I would also like to note that starting in April, all of the meetings are going to be in person. So the bike walk one will be good to have in person because we'll actually be able to maybe have some of the maps, laying them out, and really getting some of that good feedback as the presentation time too.
That's a good point.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
let's
I'm
just
recommend that in the June, if we can put that just down now.
we need to let Alta know.
Yeah, I mean, someone can present as part of that.
Yeah, but yeah, Steve will need to make sure he's got maps ready for June so we can run it by him. But yeah, I'd like to have, it'd be great if BPAC, if we could have in-person meeting with some large maps, the conference network, and whatever else we have.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Does that work with everybody? I know we kind of just like decided that, but making sure everybody else is cool with it.
I can, yeah, me and maybe it'd be Hannah or maybe Brooke from the county, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
All right. Well, I don't think we need to go into August or beyond yet, but continue sending me suggestions. I have a bunch of them from Tony on here that we can work through. But and we can get the MPP students maybe in August if that works for them. Cool. Well, let's get continuing on social media lead and secretary backup. Hannah.
Yeah, so I put the social media lead on there before realizing that Maggie and Rosie, y'all are working on that, leading it. So yeah, we don't really have to talk about that. I was worried that we didn't have anyone, so glad y'all are doing that. And then I guess the other point wanted to touch on is we don't really have right now a backup for the secretary position. So if Chris is ever out, or if there's just kind of a lot on his plate, it would be good to have just someone else on the commission as a backup person for this. So if anyone is interested, you don't have to volunteer right now, but it would be good to kind of, especially if you are one to attend most of the meetings, it would be good to have a helpful kind of backup.
Right. And Chris, were you saying that for next month's meeting, you'll need help? Or is that for writing the minutes before that meeting?
It'll be either the next meeting. There's a slight chance that I might end up missing it. I likely won't, but there is a chance. And then I might need help doing the minutes for the next meeting. It kind of depends. I guess for context, my wife's going to be having some surgery done that's going to require some recovery time. And I'm going to be taking time off from work. I'm mostly going to be sitting around, I think, hopefully, if everything goes well, and just making sure she's okay. So I think I'll be okay, but it might be worth preparing for that just in case I either miss the meeting or am not able to do minutes for that next meeting. So I should be able to do minutes for this meeting. I've actually been trying to be better about it. So I'm kind of doing some of the minutes as we're going tonight. But the next one may be a little bit of a struggle depending on how things go.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so if anybody, Brian, go ahead.
Hey, Chris, I'm happy to serve as your backup for the April meeting. I can't really commit beyond that, but for that one specifically, I'm happy to just, because as far as I know, I should be in town and at the meeting and all that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and I'll
Yeah.
try to keep you posted about how my stuff is going. It may be a little bit difficult to anticipate until kind of last minute, because I think the surgery occurs on the 18th of next month, and I don't know exactly when our next meeting is without checking.
Meeting's on the 15th. I just checked.
Oh, okay. So I should be able to at least attend that one. It'll just be a little bit of a question of getting the minutes done depending on how things go.
Right. Okay.
Well, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and if anybody, feel free to take time to think about this, but if anybody wants to be like a permanent backup, just think about that and let Hannah and I know so that we can expect you for certain things. Okay, so the next item is discussing the remaining budget, and this is also, we have some sticker designs that I sent out yesterday that I can reshare in the chat if Hannah, one of you wants to discuss those real quick. Where did I put that?
Yeah, oh, I guess Hannah Ordoba, do you want to discuss?
Both Hannahs were on there.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's both. It's Hannah Palooza. I can give a little bit of info, and then
Okay.
Hannah, feel free to chime in if there's anything I'm forgetting. But we have some remaining budget left for the year. Community engagement was like, great. How might we spend that budget? So some of the things we were thinking through were stickers that we could share out when we were tabling, as well as some other swag and items to give out when we're tabling at events this year. Huge shout out to Rosie on the graphic design front. Mary Rose just dropped the survey in the chat, but we have 7, I'm biased, but I think very fun sticker potential options. Would love for you to vote on your favorite, and then at the community engagement meeting in April, we will make our final selections and submit a sticker order. So that is the update on the sticker front. The other swag items we are considering are some carabiners that will say BPAC, and then some granola bars and candy to have at the table as well. I think that's pretty much it on the swag front. Hannah and or other community engagement folks, anything I'm forgetting there?
No, I think that's good. And if anybody hasn't filled out the survey, there's a bunch of the pictures for the sticker options are in there, but if you need to see bigger versions of it, it's in our BPAC drive under this month's meeting, under logos for stickers. And that's it.
Yeah, the main thing is we just have to use the remaining budget, which is about $500 by May 16th. And so, yeah, the stickers and if we do the carabiners and granola bars, all of that will have to get paid for before that time so we can do the reporting. And if anyone else has any other ideas that haven't shared yet and are really passionate about, you know, a swag item or something like that, definitely let us know. So we want to get this ordered in the next month. It's a use it or lose it situation with the budget. So.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody have any questions on the budget? Cool. Next up is our committee and liaison reports. Wendy's not here, and I didn't get any announcement from her. Carl, do you have anything?
Yeah, I got a bunch of things, sort of random set of things. Let me just kind of run through this quickly. And sorry, I was just finishing my survey right now. So thanks, Hannah's, for the opportunity provided to put on the stickers. Great ideas there and some great visuals. So the first thing is last night at our city council, a lot going on last night at the city council meeting. First thing is that and this just kind of happened on the consent agenda. There was no big deal, but I just want to let you know that we did approve the first $100 million in bonds. So issuing bonds to essentially go to market to get the cash for we approved $200 million in bonds last year. So it's the first $100 million we're going after to get the money so we can actually do the work on the streets and roads and parks. So that's good news to see that moving forward. We also did approve the contract for the feasibility study of Duke and Gregson. So just to give folks an update on where things stand with the two-way pairs. So there's, we just, a cycle before approved the contract for initial design on Roxborough Mangum. That's the first half of like what's maybe going to now be a 2-year process. So the design work is starting on the intersections and the other parts of Roxborough Mangum, and the feasibility now is starting on Duke Gregson. So we're getting motion there, which is really good. And I'll come back to the Duke Greg or both two-way pairs in a second. The next thing is last night, I know Mary Rose was there. Anybody else there? We had a big budget hearing late at night.
Chris was there.
I was right. Chris was there. Exactly. So and I kind of kept a tally of all the things people were talking about. So the top ranked priority for folks in the room there, for what it's worth, was fare-free buses, which is a great thing. That's also, I should say, we had a budget retreat about a month ago for the city council and staff and so forth. At that meeting, we also ranked a bunch of the priorities that the city council submitted ourselves to add to the process. And the number one thing on our city council priorities was also fare-free buses. So there's a lot of momentum towards keeping the buses fare-free, which is awesome. And appreciate your support and all the folks in Durham. We'll have to keep pushing on that, but I think that's something we can get in the budget this year, which would be a great thing for Durham. Part of the issue is that we've got some essentially expiring kind of ARPA funds we've used to make that happen. And so essentially to make buses fare free long term, we've got there's a gap there of a couple million or whatever a year or more that we've just got to address long term, probably at some point through a modest tax increase, just to sort of do that for all time. So that's the issue there with the fare free buses. The other thing was last night there were a lot of speakers that spoke, Chris among others, to two-way conversion of both Roxborough Mangum and also Duke and Gregson, and also speaking more generally about Vision Zero. That was great to see. I will say when we did our budget priorities at the retreat about a month ago, that two-way conversion ranked kind of low among the council members. I think that, and what staff suggested was there was some kind of sort of dichotomous voting there. A bunch of us, myself included, ranked that really high. Some other folks, for whatever reason, ranked it pretty low. And that's why it got kind of a very modest ranking. So I think that means there's at least strong support among several members of the council. We need to shore up that support and get more folks active and reaching out to all the council members to make sure there's majority support for the continued work on two-way conversion of Roxborough and Roxborough and Gregson, or Roxborough Mangum, but then also continued support for the work on Duke Gregson, which may be two-way conversion. But I think the way the feasibility study is going to go, I think they're going to look at a range of options, whether it's full-on two-way conversion or whether it might be like closing one lane. So you have one lane going one way on one of the pairs, one lane going the other way, and then saving the other lane for buses or protected bike lane or whatever. So I think there's options they're considering, but at some point, doing something to address the real safety concern on that road as well. So that's what's happening on those two fronts. Also this Thursday at our work session, we will receive the Vision Zero action plan, which I think you all received a presentation about that maybe in January, like a draft of the Vision Zero plan, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to come to the council at our Thursday work session, which also is a big moment. I mean, it's not only a plan that, and this is what the manager said to me today when I met with him, it's not just sort of saying, yeah, great, thanks, endorse the plan. It does involve on some level sort of like policy commitments on behalf of the city. If we're going to commit to this plan, then there's things we need to do in terms of road safety, sidewalks, and paths and so forth to actually make that happen. And I think one of the things is, a corridor like Duke Gregson, which I think is our most dangerous corridor in our whole regional MPO. So to be able to reach our Vision Zero goals, we'll need to address that. So it does involve some policymaking and funding commitments long-term on behalf of the city that I think will be important for us to make. So that's an important moment on Wednesday or Thursday at the work session meeting. Two more things is that we did have another meeting today, as Brian and I were talking about, the bike and walk plan. So that initial engagement phase has been completed, initial data gathering. I don't think there are any huge surprises, but I think confirming where there are areas that we need to really address bike and walk safety and access. And so the goal of that plan, as I think you all know, is to come up with about 25 clear high priority projects that we need to do to continue building out our bike and pedestrian network. So that's a great effort that's going forward, and I'm glad we're going to put that on the agenda for BPAC coming up soon. The last thing I want to say on a less kind of hopeful note was that we had a kind of challenging meeting about a month ago up in Bahama at the Bahama Roriton Club. There was a presentation by the folks who are working on the Durham to Roxborough Rail Trail. And we had a packed house up there. Oh, Tony, that's right. Tony, I'm glad you're here. Tony was there. Some other folks from the Durham Open Space and Trails Commission. We had a pretty packed house of what we say, Tony, maybe like 200 people that were for the most part grumpy.
Yeah, I'd say about 200. Yeah.
It was a lot of people there, grumpy and not happy about the Durham to Roxborough Rail Trail. So, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but I think it's just to know that folks up there, a lot of this concerns you hear a lot of times, I think, with trail projects is like, strangers coming up here, property kind of concerns. Not a very happy conversation from my perspective, but I think it's, it's part of the engagement process. We need to hear from folks up there. And so I think there's some education to do, but also some, just some work to manage what, sounds like are some grumpy folks up in the north who don't really love the trail right now. Yeah, Tony, I'd love any more thoughts you have on that meeting, because that was, not a happy.
Well, I didn't, when I think of this trail, I think of it in 3 segments. One is the very urban segment that goes through Bragtown. I think the concerns there are going to be gentrification, increase of property values, and so on. Then there's the middle section that goes through state game lands and Trayburn, where I think the trail will be popular. And then you have Northern Durham, where you get the concerns we see with rural trails, like the many attempts to extend the Virginia Creeper Trail into North Carolina. The concerns were pretty much what one might expect. It was use of ATVs on the trail and how to regulate that. It was interference with hunting. It was safety. It was cost. It's the very sorts of concerns you generally see in rural areas, especially in the U.S. South. So it's going to be a continuing education and stakeholder engagement process. Yeah, the level, Carl, I have to say the level of discourse was a little more difficult than I've seen in the past, with the laughter and so on about certain of the issues.
Yeah, pretty grumpy crowd.
Yeah. The presenters got laughed at 3 times about hunting, ATVs, and safety. So that was kind of sad.
So sorry to end up downer there, but that's my report. Any questions in general about what's happening at the city level? All right.
Oh, Chris, you
Mayor Rose.
Yeah, I actually just kind of want to, I guess, get your thoughts a little bit on, I spoke at the meeting and kind of expressed my disappointment.
Yeah.
The ranking went for the funding for 2A. I look at this as kind of a weird thing, right? We talk a lot about, wanting to lower deaths, especially when it comes to gun violence. But, this is kind of one of those things of, with the Vision Zero stuff, it's going to require, I appreciate everything City Council's done so far, but, at some point the rubber has to hit the road, as it were, right? And we have to make some changes. And that requires money, but we know we're going to get results. It's kind of one of the most direct functions of city government. So it's a little disappointing to hear sometimes there's this comparison, or it feels like it's like a this versus that kind of thing. In my mind, the Vision Zero stuff, the 2-way conversions and improving safety for NCDOT streets are pretty critical to achieving our goals, and is as close as you're going to get as a city council to a magic wand where you just have to wave it, right? So I'm kind of wondering if you have any thoughts on the best ways to, I'll be showing up on Thursday, so you'll be getting sick of me by the end of the week. But if you have any thoughts on how to kind of make that point most effectively to council members and other parties who aren't buying into the fact that we can get success if we really commit to doing this.
Yeah, no, I think, I appreciate that. I think it's, I have a couple of thoughts on that. So one is that, it's not that the council doesn't care about like safety on those roads. I think it does boil down to a question of like dollars and priorities, and so the initial work we did last year on the, feasibility of Roxborough and Mangum was like, maybe $500,000. But as we get into the sort of actual feasibility and the execution, right, we're talking like 5 million plus, right? So there's the costs go up. And that's where I think there's maybe a little bit of, pushback in terms of like, it's important, but how much do I want to spend? I think what's not good, because when this has come up a couple times in the past, there's been a little bit of a, hey, we're talking about Vision Zero and we don't want people dying on roads, but what about people dying from gun violence, right? And I think that's a tricky argument that I think I think I'm just trying to stay away from any kind of, weird comparison between gun deaths and road deaths. They're all deaths, they're all tragic. But I think, letting it be framed that way is not good for us. And so I think we got to try to keep it framed as like, this is like people need to be safe on their streets and also in their neighborhoods, right? The numbers, if you've seen the most recent numbers, I think there's like 6 deaths on the roads this year, 1 pedestrian, I think maybe 5 folks on the roads. There's been 7 homicides. So the numbers are they're very similar, right? Absolutely the same level of magnitude. But I think it's not it's for us as advocates of biking and pedestrian stuff and safe streets, not good to be caught up in a thing of like, well, what about other deaths? So I think we need to frame it in a way that makes clear that all people need to be safe when they're moving about Durham, whether they're driving or walking or rolling, and just kind of stick to that. I mean, there's probably some more work to be done on the actual framing to make sure it's clear how we articulate that, but I don't want to get caught in this kind of, well, what about gun deaths thing? It doesn't help us.
That's a good point. We are running out of time, so can I get a motion from somebody to add? I think we need 15 minutes.
Motion to add 15 minutes.
Great.
Seconded.
All right, can I, all those in favor to add 15 minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Great, we added 15 minutes. All right, anybody else have anything for Carl? Or we can move on to the other liaisons. Great, thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
A lot of stuff in your
A
report.
lot going on, yeah. And also,
Yeah.
like, anything comes up, email me in the meantime. Happy to chat by email.
Okay, great, thank you. Nathan, any updates for Duke?
No, I wasn't able to attend the meeting that Sean Egan came and talked to people at Duke about stuff, but I wasn't able to attend that meeting. So no.
Okay, thank you. If you could maybe try to like follow up on what was discussed in that meeting and then let us know. Royal's not here. Does anybody else have any updates related to NCCU or Fayetteville Street Corridor? Seeing none. All right. For Vision Zero, Carl already mentioned it. The final Vision Zero action plan is going to be presented during council's work session on Thursday. I believe that's at 1 p.m. So if anybody wants to see what the final presentation is, you can do that. I am sure it's going to be posted publicly soon. Lauren just emailed that out to the Vision Zero Coalition yesterday. So I don't know if it's like sent out to anybody else yet.
And one thing actually on that, Mary Rose, that it gets back to this question about how to sort of frame this argument about the safe roads and the one-way pairs, two-way pairs. I know that, again, they presented to you all, I think back in January. I've seen a draft of the proposal. And I've seen that sort of mapping of the high injury network, which is, which is not, it's helpful. It's not surprising, right? It's like a lot of the roads we know about, right? It's the most heavily traveled roads in Durham. I think what I'm going to push for, and I think may help us in terms of, again, the two-way pair or one-way pairs, is that there's not really like a heat map that sort of shows like which of those roads have like higher instances of like crashes, of like fatalities or disabling incidents, And I think having some sort of heat map of where that high injury network is the most dangerous. I know the talking point is that like 75% of injuries are on 11% of roads. I get that, but like there's also a level of detail, I'm sure, below that would show like what are among those, which are the most dangerous ones. So that's a piece I think would help to make the case for where we need to make our, first investments. And I think that's probably like Duke Gregson, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that is included in her high injury network. I haven't taken a big look at the latest map. Again, I just got it yesterday. But in other maps that I've seen with similar information, they're kind of just like data points. So like you can see where most of them are happening because the data points are basically the lines of NCDOT streets. They're just, when they're clustered together, it just looks like the street. So it's not exactly a heat map, but in those specific examples, like you can see, like it's these streets. So I don't know if it's the same or not, but it will identify specifically which streets to focus on first. Any questions for Vision Zero? Cool. Moving on to community engagement.
Yeah, we already talked about two of the big updates from our last meeting, which are the video and swag. Very exciting. The other updates are just that we are getting some tabling opportunities for the spring locked in. We will be tabling at the Durham Central Park Farmers Market the second weekend in May, and then are hopefully going to have maybe like a monthly recurring booth there, depending on how that first month goes. We're also, details still TBD, but hoping to table at the Durham Earth Day Festival. And then shout out to Maggie for being our running community queen. We will be tabling at the packet pickup for the running of the bulls on May 31st. We'll be talking at the next community engagement meeting, kind of dividing and conquering on who wants to table at each of those. But that's what we have going on. Oh, Mary Rose, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. I was asking if anybody had any questions for Hannah. And then I heard none, so I was changing the topic. Does anybody have any questions for Hannah? Okay, great. Moving on to Scott.
Yes, hello. So we reviewed 7 development plans this month, and sort of typical of the ones we've been seeing, a lot of them on our infill. They're almost all townhomes and apartments and fairly high density. So there's a lot of density development going on. So the first one was on Sharon Road, and it's 11 acres and 294 units. It's near the intersection of US 70 and Miami Boulevard, and there wasn't a whole lot to ask for other than our standard multi-use paths and raised crosswalks and so on. Next was Creekside Mixed Use, 3rd revision. So it's on US 70, a little south of the intersection with I-85, and 75 acres, so pretty big mix of apartments, townhomes, and commercial, 630 total units, so also pretty dense. We had submitted a reply to their second revision, and they did not reply. We had submitted an update to their second revision. They didn't respond to it, so we just repeated the request for that. Next one, project called Fayetteville Flats, 2nd revision. So it's 10 acres, 220 apartments, income restricted units. And it's beside Hillside High and Mount Zion Academy on Fayetteville Road. It backs up to the Tobacco Trail. And we asked for multi-use path, which was agreed to. And then we also asked for raised crosswalks, which we typically don't get, and we didn't get. Another one was called Odyssey at RTP, the 2nd revision. It's 8 acres, 110 units. It's sort of getting the theme here. It's off Martin Luther King and Fayetteville, near Martin Luther King and Fayetteville on Bell Green, which is crosses the Tobacco Trail near Soul Light Park. And we asked for a multi-use path there and connections to adjacent neighborhoods. And the developer said that they will evaluate it at site plan time. So we resubmitted the same comments and said, we really want you to do these. Next one called Ravenstone Commercial, 2.4 acres on Highway 98. It turns out this one is landlocked. It's some kind of commercial industrial thing, and so there's really nothing for us to ask for there, so we put no comments. Next one is called 1607 East Cornwallis, 2nd revision. So it's near Century Oaks Apartments on Cornwallis Road if you're headed out towards RTP. And it's only 2 acres and 11 apartments. We asked for multi-use path, and it has a bike lane there, and they said because the space is fairly small and they're 2 acres, they're only going to commit to a sidewalk. And we also asked if they would upgrade the bus stop there, which is currently just a sign, and asked, can you work with Durham transportation to put in at least a bench or something. They said no to that too. So we asked for all that stuff again, and we said, you know, we consider this to be super important. Please do it. And finally, one called 2428 East Kiss. This is third revision. It's 10 acres, 90 townhomes. It's north of I-85 near East Club Boulevard, so sort of northeast Durham. And the developer again said no to all of our second revision requests, and we'll consider it the site plan. So we asked for similar stuff again. The one unique part about this is it has a connection to the Roxborough Rail Trail. And so we asked for them to leave an easement or make a connection to that. I guess the trail's not there yet, but anyway. So anyway, that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions for him? Seeing none. Great. Nathan, planning and policy.
Hi. Yes, we talked about a bunch of stuff. We talked about the bike facilities too, / what is being called downtown bike lanes, because that makes more sense. For a while, and there are public meetings for that on the 20th to 27th and the 28th of this month. So you can go to those and give comments. You can also go to the website. You can also just email Brian Taylor and bother him about it. Then we also talked briefly about support for planters along bike neighborhood routes, but we actually just need to do more stuff for that, so never mind. We talked about Hope Valley Elementary School, of course. And then we looked ahead at some of the 2026 resurfacings instead of the 2025, because there aren't really any plans to redesign any of the 2025 roads that are going to be resurfaced. Most of them that are being done are like deep inside neighborhoods anyway, and they're like so low traffic already that there's really like not a lot to improve anyway. So we looked ahead at the 2026 stuff and created an Excel document of comments for different sections of that. And I will distribute that document out to the whole group later on. And then that was basically it.
Great, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Nathan or any of the other liaisons? Seeing none. All right, I always forget what announcements and updates entails. Can somebody remind me? Anna, do you know?
I have an announcement. Taxes are due next month. Is that?
No, the main announcement that I had was for the downtown Durham bike lanes, but Brian already talked about it.
Okay, great. And just a reminder that next month's meeting is in person at City Hall. So I hope everybody can make it out to that. Any communication priorities? Anything specifically from Maggie or Rosie or anybody else? Great. Well, we only needed 7 additional minutes. Thank you all for being here and helping with everything. Hope to see you all at the other committee meetings during April and at the official meeting on the 20th. Whenever the one is in April, the 15th. Okay, great. Well, everybody, I hope you have a great evening and talk to y'all later.
Thank
All
you.
right, bye guys.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night, y'all.
Thanks, everybody.